Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2002 movie titled Road to Perdition. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. The movie is set against the backdrop of the Great Depression in 1931. The film follows Michael Sullivan, a formidable enforcer for mob boss John Rooney. Despite his ruthless lifestyle, Michael Sullivan strives to shield his sons, Michael Sullivan Jr. and Peter Sullivan, from the darker aspects of his world. One day, he takes the family to a wake for a recently murdered man named Danny, where they pay their respects. John Rooney, who took Sullivan in as a young man and has become a father figure to him, shows affection for the boys, often engaging them in games of dice. Unlike his father, Rooney's son Connor is impulsive and reckless. During the wake, Rooney delivers an eloquent speech honoring Danny, expressing deep respect for him. However, when Danny's brother Finn takes the stage for his eulogy, he insinuates that Mr. Rooney may have had a hand in Danny's death. Sensing the escalating tension, Michael discreetly escorts Finn out to his car. As they part ways, Connor insists on having a conversation with Finn later, prompting Mr. Rooney to insist that Sullivan accompany Connor, emphasizing that it's just a talk. Afterward, Rooney sits at the piano, and Sullivan joins him for a familiar tune, drawing curious glances from those around them, including Connor, who wears an unsettling smile. Peter questions Connor about his constant amusement, to which Connor replies that he finds everything funny. Later that night, Peter awakens from a nightmare and asks Michael Jr. about their father's work for Mr. Rooney. Michael Jr. explains that their father undertakes dangerous missions, which is why he carries a gun. The next morning, Sullivan informs Peter that he has to work and will miss his concert, stirring Michael Jr.'s curiosity about their father's secretive job. That evening, during a storm, Sullivan drives out to pick up Connor for a visit to Finn. Unbeknownst to them, Michael Jr. has hidden himself in the trunk of the car. From his concealed spot, he overhears them preparing their weapons, despite their claim that they only intend to talk. Inside Finn's place, Connor confronts Finn about his disrespectful comments at the funeral, demanding an apology. Under pressure, Finn reluctantly agrees but warns that Connor will soon discover the truth about Danny's death. Tensions rise as Finn's men arrive, and when Finn continues to speak defiantly, Connor shoots him in the head. In a fit of rage and frustration at Connor's impulsive act, Sullivan eliminates the remaining men in the room. When they notice movement outside, Sullivan rushes out to find his son hiding in fear. He warns Michael Jr. to stay silent about what he has witnessed. Connor emerges and spots Michael Jr., but chooses to leave him with Sullivan. Upon returning home, a still shocked Michael Jr. asks if their mother knows about their father's true profession, to which Sullivan confirms she does. The following day, the family is taken aback when Mr. Rooney arrives at their home, prompting Sullivan to confide in Annie about the harrowing events of the previous night. While Peter warmly greets Mr. Rooney, Michael's demeanor shifts to one of caution and unease, despite Rooney's silence. In a private conversation, Mr. Rooney acknowledges the inevitability of such violence, reflecting on how young Sullivan was when he first encountered brutality in their world. At school, Michael finds himself embroiled in a fight, unleashing his pent-up anger on his opponent. Meanwhile, Mr. Rooney convenes a meeting with the mafia's top lieutenants to discuss the division of Finn's territory. The atmosphere turns serious when Mr. Rooney grimly instructs Connor to address the chaos from the previous night. Initially dismissive, Connor quickly realizes the gravity of the situation as Mr. Rooney's fury becomes palpable, forcing him to stand in respect and deliver a sincere apology. After the meeting, Mr. Rooney discreetly calls Sullivan aside for a conversation while Connor sits nearby, visibly embarrassed and seething with anger. As Sullivan prepares to leave, Connor hands him a letter meant for a low-level gangster regarding payment issues and offers an apology for the events that transpired the night before. Sullivan arrives at an underground club, where a bouncer guides him to meet the owner. The bouncer appears friendly, even asking Sullivan for a favor that could elevate his status within the organization. However, upon handing the letter to Tony, the club owner, Sullivan's instincts kick in as he senses something amiss. When Tony's demeanor shifts to one of treachery, Sullivan reacts instinctively, drawing his gun and killing both Tony and the bouncer. He glances at the letter only to discover it contained instructions for Tony to eliminate him. Realizing his family is now in grave danger, he attempts to call home but receives no response. Meanwhile, Annie is bathing Peter when a masked intruder enters and ruthlessly shoots them both dead. Michael Jr., returning home late from detention, hears the gunfire and rushes to the house, managing to conceal himself just in time to witness Connor emerge, shaken and anxious, before disappearing into the night. Sullivan bursts into the house to find Michael Jr. sitting at the table, then races upstairs, consumed by anguish as he collapses to the floor in despair. Michael Jr. remains eerily calm, silently observing his father's breakdown. Upon hearing the news of the attack, Mr. Rooney confronts Connor with rage, cursing him for bringing this tragedy upon them. That same night, Sullivan and Michael Jr. hastily pack their belongings and leave their home for a hotel where Connor is known to stay. Michael Jr., gripped by fear, pleads with his father not to go inside, but Sullivan insists on confronting this threat head-on. He hands Michael Jr. a gun with instructions to wait 5 minutes before seeking refuge with a trusted friend if he doesn't return. Upon breaking into the hotel room, Sullivan finds not Connor but Mr. Rooney's associate, Jack. Jack offers him $25,000 from Mr. Rooney as a bribe to back down, promising even more if he complies. However, Sullivan is resolute, he demands Connor's whereabouts instead. In a moment of defiance, he presses the gun to his own head, but Jack insists he's merely delivering a message. Unmoved by Jack's plea, Sullivan uses the opportunity to send a clear message to the mafia by executing him on the spot. With urgency fueling his actions, Sullivan races back to his car and drives toward Chicago, where he intends to confront a crime boss who might provide leverage in this escalating conflict. As they arrive in Chicago after a long journey, Sullivan can't help but notice the city's striking beauty, an ironic contrast to the turmoil that has engulfed his life. Sullivan leaves Michael Jr. in a reading room, a temporary sanctuary, before stepping into the imposing edifice owned by the notorious crime boss, Mr. Nitti, who commands the Chicago faction of the mafia. As Michael Jr. immerses himself in a book downstairs, he is unable to contain his grief any longer. Tears flow freely as he mourns the devastating loss of his mother and brother. In a tense meeting with Mr. Nitti, Sullivan proposes an alliance. He seeks a position at Nitti's side in exchange for the chance to eliminate Connor. However, Mr. Nitti rebuffs his request, cautioning Sullivan that his pursuit of vengeance will lead to ruin. Unyielding, Sullivan departs with a promise of retribution hanging in the air. Unbeknownst to him, Mr. Rooney and Connor have been eavesdropping from an adjacent room. Mr. Nitti advises Rooney to detach himself from paternal instincts, ultimately agreeing to sanction Sullivan's death but insisting that Michael Jr. must be spared. In a chilling twist, Mr. Nitti contacts a ruthless assassin named Harlan, assigning him the dual task of eliminating both Sullivan and Michael Jr. in the wake of this turmoil. Sullivan decides to send Michael Jr. to stay with their aunt for safety. Meanwhile, Mr. Rooney attends the funeral for his slain family, grappling with his own grief. Frank, another member of their circle, finds solace in a church, likely praying for the souls of those he is about to kill in the name of family honor. He calls his sister Sarah, who is at home during the wake, informing her of his plan to leave Michael Jr. in her care. As events unfold, Harlan spies on Sarah and learns crucial details about her last conversation. Meanwhile, Sullivan stops at a diner, but when Michael Jr. expresses a lack of appetite, Sullivan leaves him in the car while he goes inside. Harlan, having tracked Sullivan down, spots the car and pulls up to the diner. He enters and takes a seat across from Sullivan, who immediately senses danger. Feigning intoxication, Sullivan engages Harlan in conversation about his work after noticing Harlan's camera, to which Harlan claims he is a member of the press. Seizing an opportunity, Sullivan stumbles toward the bathroom, but as the cop dining nearby prepares to leave, Harlan readies his weapon for Sullivan's return. Instead, he hears the screech of tires as Sullivan makes his escape after slashing Harlan's tires. In a frantic attempt to retaliate, Harlan shoots at them and kills the cop who approaches to investigate. Sullivan swiftly turns off his headlights and veers into a field, venting his frustration at Michael Jr. for not following instructions. Michael Jr. expresses guilt, believing he is somehow to blame for their predicament, but Sullivan reassures him that he is not at fault. He can no longer take Michael Jr. to Sarah's and warns him to stay alert or risk their lives. Determined to force the mafia's hand regarding Connor, Sullivan devises a plan to rob the banks that hold their money and enlists Michael Jr.'s help, which he eagerly accepts. Sullivan teaches Michael Jr. how to drive. Despite initial stumbles, Michael Jr.'s determination soon allows him to navigate the road with confidence.
Look out for the tractor mine.
Watch out for the tractor!
Together, they execute a series of bank heists where Sullivan holds up managers but leaves them with some cash as a gesture of goodwill. As they continue their spree, Michael Jr. becomes adept at his role as getaway driver. After a string of successful robberies, Sullivan and Michael Jr. sit down for dinner at a diner. In a moment of youthful bravado, Michael Jr. casually tells the waitress that they are bank robbers, a claim she dismisses as absurd. Curious about his share of the loot, Michael Jr. learns that while he thought $200 was substantial, he could have asked for much more, a realization that hints at both his innocence and his growing involvement in this dangerous world. Meanwhile, Connor is in a state of panic, desperately trying to reach his father. Mr. Nitti learns about the robberies just as Connor bursts in, proclaiming that he no longer requires their protection and that his father is aging. Soon, he will be the one in charge. Meanwhile, Sullivan executes another bank heist, only to discover that the mafia has drained all their funds. He learns that the mafia's accountant authorized the withdrawal and intends to pay him a visit. Upon arriving at the accountant's address, Sullivan instructs Michael Jr. to stay vigilant for any signs of trouble. Inside, he confronts Mr. Rance, the accountant, at gunpoint. Unbeknownst to them, Harlan is in a hotel directly across the street. From his window, he spots Rance with Sullivan and quickly prepares himself, grabbing his shotgun. As Rance tries to stall for time, Harlan bursts into the room, unleashing a hail of gunfire. In the ensuing chaos, Sullivan manages to shoot Harlan in the face before seizing Rance's ledgers and making a hasty escape. As Sullivan rushes back to the car, Harlan manages to shoot him in the shoulder just as Michael Jr. floors the accelerator. During their frantic drive, Sullivan loses consciousness from his injury, prompting Michael Jr. to stop at a nearby house and call for help. An elderly couple tends to Sullivan's wound, and Michael Jr. remains by his father's side, offering support during his recovery. One day, as Sullivan sits on the porch, he beams with pride watching Michael Jr. assist the old farmer with his chores. That night, troubled by nightmares, Michael Jr. joins Sullivan as he reviews the mafia documents together. In a moment of vulnerability, Michael Jr. questions whether Sullivan favored Peter over him, sensing a difference in how he was treated. Taken aback by this revelation, Sullivan confesses that he sees himself in Michael Jr. and fears that he might follow in his footsteps. Michael Jr. accepts this explanation and embraces his father before heading off to bed. As Sullivan sifts through the files, he uncovers evidence that Connor has been secretly siphoning money from Mr. Rooney. Determined to confront this betrayal, they set out early the next morning, leaving the kind elderly couple a bag filled with cash as a token of gratitude. That day, Mr. Rooney attends Mass, unaware that Sullivan is seated directly behind him. After the service, Sullivan requests a private meeting, and they retreat to a room beneath the church. Sullivan presents Rooney with the incriminating documents detailing Connor's actions, but Mr. Rooney reveals that he was already aware of the situation. He expresses his inability to turn against Connor and warns Sullivan to leave while he still can. Yet, there's an unmistakable sadness in his voice as he admits he regrets losing Sullivan, who had been like a son to him. Later, Sullivan meticulously assembles his Tommy gun. Confiding in Michael Jr. that he has one final job to complete before everything changes. As Michael Jr. drifts off to sleep, Sullivan pens a heartfelt note, acutely aware that this might be his last goodbye. However, unbeknownst to him, Michael Jr. is not truly asleep. He stirs and discovers the note left behind. That night, Mr. Rooney and his guards exit a pub, only to be struck by the grim realization that their driver lies dead. In a calculated move, Sullivan emerges from the shadows, unleashing a torrent of bullets that decimates the guards while Mr. Rooney stands obliviously with his back turned. With tears welling in his eyes, Sullivan approaches Mr. Rooney and delivers a devastating blow, cutting down the man who had once been like a father to him. Moments later, Mr. Nitti receives a call from Sullivan, who, upon learning the news, willingly divulges Connor's location. Sullivan makes his way to the hotel, where the guards, recognizing his intent, allow him passage without hesitation. He readies his weapon and enters the room to find Connor cowering in the bathtub. He fires 3 shots, each one a cathartic release. Returning home, Sullivan is enveloped in a warm embrace from Michael Jr., and together they embark on their journey to Sarah's house, finally seeking the revenge they have long desired. Upon arriving at the beachside residence, Michael Jr. plays joyfully with a dog while Sullivan steps inside. Calling for Sarah, he is met with an unsettling silence. As he takes in the serene surroundings, 2 gunshots pierce the air, and Sullivan collapses to the ground. Harlan has come to fulfill his deadly mission. Setting up a camera to capture Sullivan's final moments, Harlan is suddenly confronted by Michael Jr., who stands resolute with a gun aimed at Harlan. Torn between vengeance and mercy, Michael Jr. hesitates until Sullivan urges him not to act. In a moment of clarity, Sullivan draws his own weapon and shoots Harlan in the back, ending the threat once and for all. Michael Jr. rushes to his father's side as Sullivan apologizes repeatedly, tears streaming down his face before he succumbs in his son's arms. The film concludes with Michael Jr.'s poignant narration, reflecting on his father's greatest fear, that he would follow the same dark path. He reveals that since that day, he has not touched a gun. Driving back to the farm where he grew up, he contemplates the legacy of his father. When asked if Michael Sullivan was a good man, he simply replies, "He was my father." Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.